The Country of the Blind is a short story written by H.G. Wells. It was first published in the April 1904 issue of the Strand Magazine and included in a 1911 collection of Wells' short stories, The Country of the Blind and Other Stories. It is one of Wells' best-known short stories, and features prominently in literature dealing with blindness. Wells later revised the story, with the expanded version first published by an English private printer, Golden Cockerel Press, in 1939. Plot summary. While attempting to summit the unconquered crest of Parascotopetl, a mountaineer named Nunez slips and falls down the far side of the mountain. At the end of his descent down a snow slope in the mountain's shadow, he finds a valley, cut off from the rest of the world on all sides by steep precipices. Unbeknownst to Nunez, he has discovered the fabled Country of the Blind. The valley had been a haven for settlers fleeing the tyranny of Spanish rulers, until an earthquake reshaped the surrounding mountains, cutting the valley off forever from future explorers. The isolated community prospered over the years, despite a disease that struck them early on, rendering all newborns blind. As the blindness slowly spreads over many generations, the people's remaining senses sharpened, and by the time the last sighted villager had died, the community had fully adapted to life without sight. Nunez descends into the valley and finds an unusual village with windowless houses on a network of paths, all bordered by curbs. Upon discovering that everyone is blind, Nunez begins reciting to himself the refrain, "In the country of the blind, the one-eyed man is king." He realizes that he can teach and rule them, but the villagers have no concept of sight, and do not understand his attempts to explain this fifth sense to them. Frustrated, Nunez becomes angry, but the villagers calm him, and he reluctantly submits to the way of life, because returning to the outside world seems impossible. Nunez is assigned to work for a villager named Jacob. He becomes attracted to Jacob's youngest daughter, Medina Cerate. Nunez and Medina Cerate soon fall in love with one another, and having won her confidence, Nunez slowly starts trying to explain sight to her. Medina Cerate, however, simply dismisses it as his imagination. When Nunez asks for her hand in marriage, he is turned down by the village elders on account of his unstable obsession with sight. The village doctor suggests that Nunez's eyes be removed, claiming that they are diseased and are affecting his brain. Nunez reluctantly consents to the operation because of his love for Medina Cerate. However, at sunrise on the day of the operation, while all the villagers are asleep, Nunez, the failed king of the blind, sets off for the mountains, hoping to find a passage to the outside world, and escape the valley. In the original story, Nunez climbs high into the surrounding mountains until night falls, and he rests, weak with cuts and bruises, but happy that he has escaped the valley. His fate is not revealed. In the revised and expanded 1939 version of the story, Nunez sees from a distance that there is about to be a rockslide. He attempts to warn the villagers, but again they scoff at his imagined sight. He flees the valley during the slide, taking Medina Cerate with him. Characters: Nunez, a mountaineer from Bogotá, Colombia. Jacob, Nunez's master. Medina Cerate, the youngest daughter of Jacob. Adaptations. Several radio adaptations of the story have been produced. Escape Aired debuted its adaptation starring Raymond Burr Thanksgiving Week, 1947, which featured a different ending in which Nunez escapes the valley alone, but goes blind in the process due to the constant glare from the snow. Another episode of Escape aired June 27, 1948, starring Paul Frees. In 1954, 1957 and 1959 the CBS radio series Suspense rebroadcast this version. CBS Radio Mystery Theater aired another radio adaptation May 7, 1979. The episode was titled Search for Eden, and the main characters' names were changed. Núñez was renamed Carlos and Medina Cerate was renamed Eva. The BBC folded the story in two others by Wells for a BBC Radio 4 extra entitled The Door in the Wall, also with a twist at the end in which the storyteller reveals himself to be the tale's protagonist. A teleplay written by Frank Gabriel Sen was produced in 1962 for the TV series The DuPont Show of the Week. The title of the hour-long episode was The Richest Man in Bogotá, and it aired on the 17th of June 1962. It starred Lee Marvin as Wanda Núñez, and Miriam Colon as Marina. The Russian studio Soyuz Multfilm made a wordless 19-minute animated film adaptation in 1995 called Land of Blind. The composer Mark Anthony Turnage wrote a chamber opera based on the story, completed in 1997. A stage production was written by Frank Higgins. The only production to date has been in the Coterie Theater in Kansas City, Missouri in 2006.